Hold up, Diddy. Hit him with part 2, son.
No, I think when you talk about toxic masculinity from the standpoint of dominating women or feeling the need to be domineering and subjugate women, I think, because we use, especially in the church, we have this term submission, right? I've heard brothers say, well, my wife won't submit. I think we have to really understand the term submission doesn't mean blind obedience. Submission is a compound word, sub to get under, mission, what you're about, right? So submission meaning get under the mission. So you can't ask someone to get under your mission if you don't have a mission. And so I think if we have to revisit even some of the nomenclature that we use when we talk about things like this. But this term of toxic masculinity, I think people have weaponized the term now. So even as a black man, you're almost afraid to be too expressive or to do things that you just normally do by virtue of you being a man because you don't want to be labeled toxic masculinity. I think we have to revisit this.
I even think that just even the way toxic masculinity is described, it usually ends up kind of being pointed at black men. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about it, in the 50s, like the hottest TV show in the world was The Honeymooners, and dude threatened to beat his wife every episode. To the moon, Alice. Like he was talking about beating his wife, and that was the punchline. Uh-huh. But because we're seen as bigger, stronger, savage, a threat, whatever you want to call it, when we talk about toxic masculinity, we talk about what the black man is doing. And I think that's a problem that I feel like there's a plot now with a lot of the stuff that's going on to really kind of drive a wedge between the black man and the black woman.
Absolutely.
And
it ain't now.
I think it's always been, but I think it's supercharged now. Mm-hmm. And I hear, like I said, I hear a lot of rhetoric like, oh, black men don't like black women, and black men are toxic, and all kind of other. And I'm like, I think that, again, when you live in a patriarchy, there's always going to be a disdain for the lesser. And so the men are going to have a disdain for their women because the women are supposed to be, like you said, submissive. They're supposed to listen. We're supposed to be able to control them and dominate them. And like, no, they're not automatrons. They're people. They have their own ways and their own things. And like, I believe that, as far as a relationship, the man should be the head of a household, but that don't mean that it just goes your way. As the head, you have to learn how to delegate, how to listen to your people and what's best in each situation. If you're a micromanager to the point where you control every single aspect of the thing, the company is going to fail. The household is going to fail. You have to be able to delegate and say, okay, babe, I need you to run this, and I need you. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to have to worry about that. Let me go do this, and we come back together and build up a plan together. It's not just what I say goes.
And just to throw out there, I would even say that toxic masculinity in the context you're talking about is exactly why earlier when we talked about black privilege, why it's difficult to see that. Mm-hmm. Because yet again, us just being who we are is being labeled something negative.
I mean, and again, there is a lot of toxicity out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I don't want to
act like it doesn't.
Disrespect the point, act like it doesn't
But I think
exist.
also you got to consider there is toxicity, but the genesis of where that came from. For black men and black women, but we're talking about black men and black men, that toxicity generally comes out of trauma. Mm-hmm. Not to justify it, don't make it right, because at some point you still got to make your own decisions, but it was birthed in trauma. And I think one of the reasons you see it growing today is because of Obama. It's this idea that, oh shoot, the lion might be getting up. Mm-hmm. They didn't get this. It was crazy. Obama wasn't even like
super
black being black at all.
Descendant of slaves.
He's not a foundation. No, he's not a foundation of Black America.
Yeah, and so, but it's the idea in the minds of the other that, oh shoot, they might get up. They might think they can actually pull this off. We need to step up the effort to make them see themselves not as this, but as this, and this. And I think that's one of the reasons you see it, especially in Hollywood, because Hollywood always is a precursor of policy and change. As soon as the story starts changing, you ain't long before laws and stuff start changing because people's minds.
Policy follows narrative.
Yeah, and our minds start changing. So I think black men have to constantly reinforce themselves and remind themselves of who they are. The difficulty becomes, and some of our toxicity grows because the lack of encouragement for black men. We absorb more encouragement from black women. And in absorbing from black women, there's very little for us to return. We use what we get from them to try to go higher, and going higher, it distances us from them. And so you end up in these rooms that you got into because a black woman or black grandma or black somebody encouraged your tail there. But in these rooms now, there are no black women. You know, and so now you're forced to pick between my future and my foundation.
Yeah, that's good.
And that in itself causes more toxicity in you, because that can drive anybody crazy. I got to pick between my mama and my people and making more money and having a life where I ain't got to go back to that'll drive anybody crazy. That's a lot.
I mean, but then again, in that situation, don't we have an obligation to reach back and pull somebody up though?
We have an obligation, but when there's scarcity, you also have self-preservation.
And I think this goes back to this narrative of scarcity that has told us you can't have both. We are really the only group of people in this country that's told you can only have this, you can only have this, you can't have both. You know, I mean, think about it, right? Even subconsciously, sometimes we think, okay, if I've got a great professional life, my love life is crap. Right? Or if things are going well in this area of my life, then they're going to suck in this area. We are often subconsciously fed this narrative that you can only get so many wins. And then you get one win, you got to take an L here. You get two, you definitely got to take an L here, right? So you cannot have even seasons. I mean, think about even in your personal life. You feel guilty sometimes when you have seasons of success and victory. You get a few wins and you get nervous because the other shoe gonna drop in your mind. And so I think this whole scarcity mentality is so pervasive. We don't even realize how deeply entrenched it is psychologically.
Yeah, it starts. Now that you mentioned it, I was just thinking about that. It's starting think about coming up. When you hit 18, you're told to get out.
Right.
So now it's like you're on a time frame from enjoying your home life to the point where you got to go out and face the world, knowing you're not prepared. But you're told to get out at 18, or go to college. Go to college, or you got to get out, go to the military, whatever, what have you. It's not until you start to look at other races where you see multi-generational households. You're like, where do they do that at? Now, you might have grew up in your grandmother's household because your mom was living with your grandma, but it wasn't because it was a multi-generational house that they wanted to have it. It was a like a scarcity.
So I did a wedding for somebody one time, and it was the craziest things. White couple, beautiful couple, great people. And we sitting there talking around the reception time, and y'all know me, I'm trying to get out of there, I don't want to say it. But we sitting there chit-chatting, and the groom mentions, he said, you gotta come by our place that my parents got us.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, that part.
He said, my parents, it wasn't much, but, they did what they could. They got us a little house by the lake, as a wedding present down the street from them. And, that's the same thing, my sister will get him. I'm like, what the? You got a house, bro? And he's like, it's not much. And it's full straight face. I'm like, I wish my parents, I love them. My parents wanted to.
You get a toaster up here.
Yeah. My parents want to get
now air fried now.
Housewarming gift.
Right, you get a housewarming gift.
You get a gift card.
Like best case scenario, you get a used car. They upgrade. They give you their old car. But we're not giving anything when we're shoved out the door.
And so imagine, I'm just thinking man. So now all the cash y'all just got, you can really do whatever. Black folk, I do weddings, and I'm sitting there watching them count in the back out the cards. So they
have to pay for the wedding.
To pay for the spot,
right.
And it's.
But even going back to that point, many times with black folk, there's a lot of times this pressure especially if you get educated, you go to school, you know, you have a career now. It's like, oh, now you can help.
Yeah.
Well, no, but because most of us got, you know, not now you got to pay off your student loans. Now you got to go find a place. No, now you can help because you got a career. You should be making good money. No, I got this and this and that to pay. I got, you know.
Man, that same couple. That dude, he was shocked when I said I had student loans. He didn't know what it was.
Bro,
He said, "You had loans for school?"
Bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, some cases, like I went to when a girl I was dating at the time and her coworkers, and so they put in the wedding invitation, like they don't want gifts, they just want to put money, get money together for their house, down whatever. So, and they made $25,000 just off. And so their father got up and said, "I'm gonna match you dollar for dollar." Just like that, they got $50,000 for their house. Dude paid for the wedding and everything. So I'm like, I was blown away. I was in my mid-20s. I'm like, I've never seen anything like this before. Like,
And see, that's the thing today is black men, you know, and for the most part, we're all either educated or in a career. And it's still mind-blowing to think that you could start out with $50,000 toward a house. Or like that's just insane. You know, we looking for apartments. We looking for like.
It's weird because sometimes you get a glimpse behind the curtain. You just see parts of, I won't say white, but I guess whiteness that we're not even privy to. Mm-hmm. I remember, and this is super random, but I remember I was reading a newspaper and they were talking about some plane crashing into a LA Fitness. I'm like, how? But apparently, so we're looking into it, there's a subdivision to where you can buy a house that also has a hangar. Mm-hmm. Each house has a hangar, and there's a landing strip in there.
I just found out those even existed about 2 weeks ago. I just found out they
I'm like, what?
Your crib got a landing strip.
So dude going to work, jumped in his airplane, took off too low, and clipped the LA Fitness.
Yep.
But if that hadn't happened, I would never know that existed in life. You know what I'm saying? It's just so much that's like, it's just, we just don't even experience. I used to work, I used to work a little bit north of, like, what is it, River North. And so one day I was going to where I'm walking around, I happened onto Cabrini Green. And so they tore down the Cabrini high rises, but the row houses are still there. And I'm looking, and they got brand new townhouses for like $600,000 right across the street. Like you could look in one of the listings and look out the window and see the Cabrini Green row houses, and they even put a big fence around them. And I'm like, that's so crazy that.
Two very different realities.
Yeah, it's so. And again, they got to keep the row houses there because a certain percentage of the has to be low income. Yeah. So they just kept them right there. And it is.
So, not to cut you off, but then
a question from our studio audience.
Okay, so my question is, have you guys heard of Kevin Samuels?
Yeah.
And how he talks about like the black man makes a certain amount of money or whatever, and I think you guys have talked about scarcity. How does that affect the black family? Because I know, me and some of my friends, our fathers, whenever they didn't have money, they didn't come around. Yeah. And men, are natural providers. So how does living in scarcity affect that black love goals, marrying somebody, taking on a family, if you're still just out here still trying to make
it has decimated the black family. The black Americans went from in the 1955 being the most married demographic group of people in this nation to now 2021 being the least married demographic group in this nation, right? Over 40% of African Americans have never been married. So you're talking about when you look at these metrics and data around, because marriage and family is one of the main, we think about it sometimes just from a romantic context, but it's also an economic wealth builder, right? I mean, statistically, married people are more economically stable, all of those things, right? So I think it has decimated the black family because what's happened is people are getting married much later now, or not getting married at all, right? Which, I mean, some people do it for practical reasons and purposes, but I think the other thing is stuff like that we talked about before. You got debt, she got debt, y'all like, well look, we can't even afford this because, we going into the thing with $250,000 of debt between us and we ain't got a house yet, right? And so it's like, I can't even think about, and then you start talking about kids, that's in our mind, if people who come from a place of economic privilege, it's like, oh, that's a beautiful thing, and in our mind, like that's another bill. You don't see a baby, you see a bill, right? And so I think it has decimated the prospects of the black family because what it's done is made some men gun shy. Because rather than thinking of, okay, let me go get a wife, start a family, you're like, man, I gotta get my stuff together.
Yeah.
But then you look up and you're 30, 40, and you're still trying to get some stuff together. But you've missed prime years that were building years.
But on the flip side to that, and I'm glad she brought this guy up because I've seen a couple of clips of this dude. And he talk about the average guy and how much he makes, and he have all these women on his show that have this standard and have this list of things. He gotta be making over 6 figures. He gotta do this. He gotta be a degree. No kids. Like, so you have women who automatically count you out. You know, when you could be the most amazing man to her and provide, and you build together. And I think in one of our previous episodes we were talking about marriages. You looking at it as a corporation. You're a corporation. She's a corporation. You come together to build, right? But you have these individuals that's looking at it like you got to come to the table already fully built, because in my mind I'm already fully built, which you're probably not. And then it never comes to.
I would venture to say that they don't think they're fully built. I think it's back to the scarcity issue again, because even those women, and we can judge them, and I know Kevin Samuels judges them based upon what they're requesting, but they're requesting out of a place of scarcity.
Yeah.
They're looking for security. Women look for security. And men are the ones we look to be providers. So if you strip me of being a provider, I no longer can provide for her, and she now is deeper in scarcity and looking for more security. So she's pulling on me for what I can't get.
Myself.
Right. And so she's pulling on me for what I can't give.
And
that kills it all the more.
And on top of that, when you think about black women in poverty are incentivized not to marry because you lose out on a lot of social, you know what I'm saying, social benefits.
We're gonna give you all this as long as you ain't got a man.
But isn't that even a black male thing to be like, I'm a corporation, you're a corporation, we come together? When white men, they don't look at their woman as a corporation to help. Like, I got it all. I'm paying all the bills.
But white men look at her as, no, they do look at it. You are the corporation that covers the house.
Right.
You are the corporation that is going to rear the kids, and that, so in that sense,
sometimes she also
I
feel like sometimes she doesn't necessarily have it as far as working, but she doesn't come from scarcity.
Yeah,
she comes with something.
Right.
There's her family's paying for the wedding. It's no debt on you. It's like, so she's still coming with something.
You have white men that are married a white woman that doesn't work but has a master's degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all he need her to do is you handle this part of the company. I'll handle this part of the company. But we don't have those things. Our situation is like everybody got to work. Both my parents had to work. Yeah.
But is that a desire for you guys
For
you to be in a situation where your wife doesn't have to? And if that is a desire for you, do you forego marriage until you get to the point where she doesn't have to participate financially?
Well, my wife and I tried that, and we failed miserably. Apparently, she felt the way me asking like stuff like, why you need more money, where you going, So yeah. I mean, and maybe that's a toxic masculinity in me, but it's hard. And I mean, it's a lot of pressure to be the sole provider. It's a lot of pressure. Where it's like I can't even really mouth off of work like I want to because, like, you know what I'm saying? If I lose my job, we totally destitute. So I mean, it's tough, man. So
and we don't have the security cushion.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, ultimately,
well, what has society told us though? Coming up, you're supposed to get to the point where you can get it to where your wife is at home. She's taking care of home. That makes you, more masculine because you are the sole provider.
You're the man. Your wife don't work, man.
Yeah. So when I was able to tell my wife, okay, you can stay at home. Yeah, that felt miserably. It felt miserably. It was. I wasn't prepared for what came with that, and of course, all the life experiences and the trauma she had. Again, I did things like Justin was saying. So you want money again? Or so you go on a shopping spree and you running up credit cards, and you ain't clocked in years. So stuff like that.
You wouldn't really shoot in the gym.
It's like, how you gonna pay for all these shoes in here? I'm not wearing all these heels, but if I got to, I will, because you're not gonna. My Jordan collections.
There's the fluid friendship.
I will throw them shoes on and put a Nike sign on the side of it, but you're not gonna just keep spending all the money on shoes. And I'm out here having to work all day, and then when I come home, expect when I come home looking for peace,
Go ahead. Explain what.
I don't get my toxic masculinity. But I come home hoping that peace is somewhere near the house because I've been working all day dealing with all of the things that the stressors that of being a black man in corporate America and out here hustling and getting it, and we're comfortable. And I come home, and for some reason, whatever was going on, and you dealing with the kids all day or what have you, and now you see there's another adult in the house, and you want to look for a release, something like that.
And see, that's the thing.
It doesn't work for me.
The picture isn't the same. It's given the impression that it can be the same. And so even if a black woman desires to be at home and she often doesn't even see the support system that the white woman has in behind the scenes. So white woman, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, there's a mama, there's grandmama, there's nannies, there's there's all this stuff that supports that woman in what she does at home. Whereas in many cases, a black woman or minority women, all that stuff ain't at home. And she's like, oh, I get to be home, stay at home mom, and then it's like, no help.
Yeah.
So, Jason come walking in the door, it's like, here, take this kid.
Yeah, I made the money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And again, that's not fair to say, well, I made the money. Well, I gotta get the kid. Yeah, she been at home all day with the kids. You know what I'm saying? And it's tough. It's a lot of it's a lot of conversations and it's a lot of back and forth that me and my wife will admit that we both weren't mature enough to handle at the time.
And I think as black men, I would agree that we all black men, we ascribe to being the providers. But just based on, again, historically, how we have been raised, and financially, it just seems impossible, right? But then for those who they are able to take care of, be the sole provider, I think contextually, there's conversations that what we're describing that had never been had, right? So we don't really know what that looks like to have a stay-at-home mom and dad is working, right? That type of family structure, is very foreign for us.
Well, and I think the other thing that's different from previous generations, there is more external pressure to have these markers of success, right? So, my grandparents in Georgia, 13, 15 kids, right? And my parents raised 6 kids. So, but the difference is in their generations, you didn't look up every other person is in the line at the Louis Vuitton store and the Gucci store. So there weren't these same pressures to show, are we doing all right, we doing good, and right? And I think another thing as men, sometimes it may not be that the woman you're with wants you to give her a lavish lifestyle, but internally you may feel the pressure to provide at a certain level, and that stress is self-imposed. It's not she may not have said you need to buy me a BMW as a birthday present, right? But internally you want to feel that you can give her the world.
Absolutely. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot that goes along with it. It's tough.
So here's my last question. So what do black men need from black women?
Jason?
Let me start out by saying I think it varies depending on the man.
Okay.
I don't think that as black men we can say that every black man needs is one thing. Well, let me take that back. There might be one thing that all black men need. However,
other than that, right? Let's say that. Okay, let's say that's the default.
Other than that, I think
Exactly.
Right. What he said.
Peace.
I'm out of peace now. But
So I would agree with that. I think
it varies.
I think all since we can't speak as a monolith. So, however, I think at this point, this phase of my life, I was very intentional about looking for a black woman that brought peace to my current existence. And so that was something that I had to have, because in moving forward and dealing with all the stuff that we had to deal with, and the stuff that even in the midst of us having this conversation, and it's been about 30 minutes, 45 minutes or what have you, there's so much stuff going on socially that we can pull out our phones when this conversation is over and see something else has happened, and that we're gonna have to adapt and adjust and deal with. And so now it's like, if you can't help bring some semblance of peace to my existence, then we cannot coexist, because I've already done years of dealing and learning with just being in a relationship to check off the box, the house, the home, the 2 kids, the picket fence, and all that type of stuff. I checked off the career aspirations. No, we tore the fence down. So. Career aspirations, stuff like that. And now the real goal is peace, happiness, and how can we elevate as a family in this land, this foreign land.
And on that point, I think that's where we're going to have to let it go. This has been a great episode of 1320 Stuff. We want to thank Pastor Darryl and his guys for coming out, having some conversations with us about what it means to be a black man in America. We know that we've endured quite a lot over the years. We've come a long way. We got quite a ways to go. But one thing we can all agree upon is that black men are dope, and we will rise every time we're knocked down. So again, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, follow us on all social media platforms, and we look forward to seeing you guys again on the next episode of 1320 Stuff.
Peace.